Dr. Kiranane pressed her face against the cold metal wall of her laboratory. Her blue skin glowed softly in the dim light as she stared at the data screen one more time. The numbers were clear. The Sacred Council had been lying to everyone for 300 years. She touched the screen with her long fingers. The information showed that her people, the Villani, could have had fusion power centuries ago. They could have traveled to distant stars. They could have built better cities and cured diseases. But the Council kept this knowledge hidden. They wanted to stay in power. Kiranane's heart beat fast. She knew what would happen if she told everyone the truth. The Council punished people who spoke against them. They called them truth speakers and sent them away forever. But she could not keep quiet. Her people deserved to know. The next morning she walked into the great council chamber. The room was huge, with walls that reached up to the clouds. 12 elders sat on high chairs, their tentacles moving slowly like underwater plants. Elder Morvac was the oldest and meanest of them all. His eyes were like black holes. "I have something important to share," Kiranane said. Her voice echoed in the big room. She held up her data pad. "The fusion technology we need exists. It has existed for 300 years. You have been hiding it from us." The elders did not speak for a long moment. Then Elder Morvac's tentacles began to shake with anger. His voice was like thunder. "You dare bring lies into this sacred place. You dare question the wisdom of those who have guided our people for generations." "These are not lies," Kiranane said. She tried to keep her voice steady. "I have proof. The calculations are here. The energy readings are here. Everything we need to enough." Morvac shouted. The other elders began to glow with anger too. Their bioluminescence turned from soft blue to harsh red. "You have chosen the path of the truth speaker. You have chosen exile." Kiranane felt her knees go weak. Exile meant being sent to the edge of space. It meant being alone forever. No Villani had ever returned from exile. "Please," she whispered, "just look at the data. Just consider that I might be right." But it was too late. The elders had made their decision. Guards came and took her datapad away. They put metal bands around her wrists that would mark her as an exile forever. Anyone who helped her would be punished too. 2 days later, she stood on the loading dock of a transport ship. The captain was a big creature from the Turanian species. He had gray skin and small eyes. He would not look at her. "Get on the ship," he said in a rough voice. "I do not want to spend any more time near you than I have to." Kiranane climbed into the cargo hold. There were no windows and no comfortable seats. The ship was cold and dark. She sat on the metal floor and tried not to cry. The journey took 5 days. The captain never spoke to her again. The ship's computer announced their meals, but the food was old and tasteless. Kiranane spent the time thinking about her family and friends. They would never see her again. They would probably forget she ever existed. Finally, the ship stopped. Kiranane could hear the captain talking to someone on the radio, but she could not understand the words. Then the cargo door opened, and she saw her new home. Desolation Point was an old research station floating in empty space. It looked like a metal spider with broken legs. Some of the lights were not working. The solar panels were cracked and dirty. This was where she would spend the rest of her life. The captain pushed her toward the airlock. "This is as far as I go," he said. "The station has basic life support and some food supplies. Do not expect anyone to come looking for you." Kiranane stepped into the airlock. Behind her, she heard the captain's ship starting its engines. She pressed the button to open the inner door, and the airlock sealed behind her with a final click. The station was quiet, except for the humming of old machines. The air smelled stale and metallic. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. Kiranane walked through the empty corridors, looking for a place to sleep. She found a small room with a bed and a desk. On the desk was a note from the previous exile. It said, "The water recycler breaks down every few weeks. The food printer only works half the time. The communication array was damaged on purpose. Good luck. Kira sat on the bed and looked out the small window at the stars. They looked so far away now. Somewhere among them was her home planet, but she would never see it again. She was truly alone in the universe. The station's computer spoke in a cold electronic voice. Welcome to Desolation Point. Current population 1. Days until next supply. Delivery unknown. Kira closed her eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to be connected to other minds. But there was only silence now. Deep, empty silence that seemed to go on forever. 6 months had passed since Kira arrived at Desolation Point. Her blue skin had grown pale and dull. The soft glow that all Vellani carried had dimmed to almost nothing. She looked like a ghost of her former self. Every morning she woke up hoping to hear another voice. Any voice. But there was only the humming of broken machines and the whistle of air moving through cracked pipes. The silence was eating her from the inside. Kira spent her days crawling through the station's dark maintenance tunnels. The metal was cold against her skin. Her tools were old and rusty, but she tried to fix whatever she could. The water recycler needed new filters. The food printer kept making strange noises. The power generator flickered on and off like a dying heartbeat, but every time she found a broken part, she discovered something terrible. Someone had damaged it on purpose. The fusion coils had tiny cuts in them. The computer chips had been scratched with sharp tools. The communication dish outside had loose bolts that would never hold. The council had made sure she could never escape. They wanted her to die slowly on this floating tomb. On day 112, she tried to call for help. Her fingers shook as she worked on the communication system. She had found some spare parts in a storage room. Maybe, just maybe, she could send a signal to passing ships. After hours of work, the system came to life. A green light appeared on the control panel. Kira heart jumped with hope. She spoke into the microphone with a voice made rough from months of silence. This is Dr. Kira of the Vellani Republic. I am stranded on Desolation Point Research Station. Please respond if anyone can hear this message. She waited. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, a voice crackled through the static. It was a cargo ship. We hear you, station. But we cannot help. You are marked as exile. Sorry. The communication went dead. Kira stared at the radio for a long time. Then she put her head in her hands and cried. 2 more ships passed by over the following months. A passenger liner from the Helix system ignored her completely. A mining vessel actually changed course to avoid her when she sent her distress call. No one in the galaxy would risk helping in exile. The worst part was not the broken machines or the bad food. It was what the loneliness was doing to her mind. The Vellani were not meant to be alone. They needed to connect with other minds to stay healthy. Without that connection, they slowly went insane. Kira started talking to herself, just to hear a voice. She had conversations with imaginary friends. Sometimes she forgot what day it was, or what she had eaten for breakfast. Her hands shook when she tried to work on repairs. She found the bodies of 3 previous exiles in the lower levels of the station. They had died years ago, maybe decades. One was sitting at a desk, still holding a pen. Another was curled up in a corner like a sleeping child. The third had tried to break through an airlock window with bare hands. Kira moved their bodies to a storage room and said a prayer for them. She wondered how long it would be before someone found her body. In the same way, the food supplies were running low. The protein bars tasted like cardboard, and the water had a metallic flavor that made her sick. She tried to grow plants in the station's old laboratory, but nothing would grow in the artificial light. Everything here was designed to fail. On day 215, the main power generator started making a grinding noise. Kira knew what that meant. The station would lose life support within days. She spent 18 hours trying to fix it, but the replacement parts were too damaged to work properly. She sat in the dark corridor, exhausted and defeated. Her tools lay scattered around her like the bones of some dead animal. The grinding noise continued, counting down to her death. That night, she had dreams about home. She saw her family's house by the crystal lake. She heard her mother's voice calling her name. She felt the warm touch of her sister's mind connecting with hers. But when she woke up, there was only cold metal and empty silence. Kira walked to the station's observation deck. Through the cracked window, she could see distant stars twinkling like tiny diamonds. One of them was her home sun, but she could not tell which one. They all looked the same now. She thought about the 3 dead exiles she had found. They had probably stood in this same spot, looking at these same stars. They had probably felt the same hopelessness crushing their hearts. Soon she would join them in the storage room, just another forgotten victim of the Council's cruelty. The life support system beeped a warning. Air recycling at 60%. Power generator failing. Estimated time remaining, 3 days. Kira closed her eyes and made her decision. She would not wait for the machines to kill her slowly. Tomorrow, she would shut down the life support, herself. It would be quick and peaceful. The silence would finally end. She spent her last night writing a message on the station's computer. Maybe someone would find it someday. Maybe they would remember that she had tried to tell the truth. Then, she went to sleep, ready to never wake up again. Kira stood in front of a life support control panel. Her hand shook as she reached for the main power switch. One flip, and everything would end. The air would stop flowing. The heat would fade away. In a few minutes, she would fall asleep forever. She had already said goodbye to everything. Her memories of home, her dreams of changing the world, the hope that someone might care about the truth she had tried to tell. It was all over now. The control room was quiet, except for the beeping of warning lights. Red lights flashed on every wall. The computer kept repeating the same message. Life support failing. Seek immediate assistance. But there was no one to seek assistance from. She was alone in the universe. Kira-9 took a deep breath and touched the power switch. The metal was cold under her fingertips. This was it. This was how her story would end, not with a grand discovery or a moment of triumph, but with silence and darkness. Just as she began to push the switch down, a sound crackled through the old speakers in the ceiling. At first she thought it was just static from the broken communication system. But then she heard something impossible, a voice. But this voice was different from any she had ever heard. It was not the musical tones of her people. It was not the deep rumbles of the Tauranians or the whistling sounds of the Helix creatures. This voice was rough and warm at the same time. It had strange emotions in it that she could not understand. Hello? This is Captain Jinwoo of the human vessel Wanderer. We are picking up a distress signal from your location. Is anyone there? Do you need help? Kira stared at the speaker. Her heart started beating so fast, she thought it might explode. Humans. She had heard stories about them in the outer trading posts. They were a young species that had only learned to travel between stars a few years ago. They did not know the laws of the galaxy. They did not understand about exiles. Her hand moved away from the power switch. She stumbled to the communication panel and grabbed the microphone. Her voice came out as a whisper, because she had not spoken to another person in so long. Yes, yes, I am here. I am Dr. Kira. But please, you must listen to me carefully. I am marked as an exile. If you help me, your people will be punished. The Council will ban you from all civilized worlds. There was a pause. Then she heard something that made no sense at all. The human was laughing. Not cruel laughing, but the kind of sound someone makes when they hear something funny. Lady, we do not even know who this council is, and we sure do not take orders from anyone who tells us not to help people. What is your situation? Kiranine felt tears running down her cheeks. When was the last time someone had asked about her situation? When was the last time anyone had cared if she lived or died? My life support is failing, she said. I have been alone here for over 7 months. The station is breaking down. I was about to... I was going to end it myself. Well, that is not happening on our watch, the voice said firmly. My name is Captain Jinwoo Kim. We are about 6 hours away from you. Can you hold on that long? You do not understand, Kiranine said. I am a truth speaker. I tried to tell my people that the council was lying to them. Anyone who helps a truth speaker becomes an exile too. You will never be able to return to civilized space. Another voice joined the conversation. This one sounded younger and had a different accent. Captain, are you hearing this? They punish people for telling the truth. What kind of messed up galaxy is this? The kind we are going to help fix. Minju, Captain Jinwoo, replied. Doctor Kirasambila, do not worry about our safety. Where we come from, we have a saying, we do not leave people behind, ever. Kiranine sat down, heavily in the control chair. She could not believe this was happening. For 7 months, she had been completely alone. Every ship that passed by had refused to help her. The entire galaxy had turned its back on her. But these strange humans did not seem to care about any of that. Why? She asked. Why would you risk everything for someone you have never met? Because it is the right thing to do, Captain Jinwoo said simply. Look, we humans are new to space. We do not know all your rules and customs, but we know right from wrong, and leaving someone to die alone is wrong, period. The young voice called Minju spoke again. Besides, Dr. Kiranine, we are curious about what truth you tried to tell. Maybe you can share it with us during the trip. Trip? Kiranine asked. Well, you cannot stay on that death trap of a station, Captain Jinwoo said. We will take you somewhere safe, maybe to our space. The Human Alliance does not have many rules yet, but one of them is that truth-tellers are welcome. For the first time in 7 months, Kiranine felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. These humans did not know her. They did not owe her anything. But they were coming to save her anyway. She looked at her reflection in the dark computer screen. Her skin was pale, and her eyes were tired, but she was going to live. Someone had heard her voice in the darkness, and decided to answer. Thank you, she whispered into the microphone. I will wait for you. 6 hours felt like 6 years to Kiranine. She paced around the control room, checking the communication system every few minutes. Part of her worried that she had imagined the whole conversation. Maybe the loneliness had finally broken her mind completely. But then she heard the rumble of engines outside the station. Through the cracked window, she saw lights moving in the darkness. A ship was approaching. It was really happening. The human vessel looked nothing like the sleek ships of the Galactic fleet. It was boxy and awkward, with mismatched hull plates, welded together. Some parts looked new, while others were clearly salvaged from old wrecks. But to Kiranine, it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Desolation Point, this is Wanderer requesting permission to dock, came Captain Jim's voice over the radio. Permission granted, Kiranine replied, though she was not sure the docking system still worked. But be careful. Most of the station's systems are damaged. Do not worry about us, said the younger voice she had heard before. We humans are good at making things work that should not work. The ship moved slowly toward the station's docking port. Kiranine heard metal grinding against metal as the two vessels connected. Red warning lights flashed, but somehow the seal held. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps in the corridor outside. The airlock door opened, and Kiranine saw her first humans. Captain Jinwoo was shorter than she expected, with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with patches sewn onto it. Behind him was a young woman with short black hair and oil stains on her clothes. She carried a large toolbox and was looking around with obvious curiosity. "Dr. Kira-9?" Captain Jinwoo asked. When she nodded, he smiled. "It is good to meet you. This is Minju, our chief engineer." Minju stepped forward and bowed politely. "Your distress call said the life support was failing. Mind if I take a look?" Kira-9 stared at them. After 7 months of isolation, seeing other living beings felt like a dream. You really came. I cannot believe you really came." Of course we came," Captain Jinwoo said gently. "You called for help. That is all we needed to know." Minju was already examining the control panels. She pulled out strange tools that Kira-9 had never seen before. "Captain, this is bad. Someone sabotaged these systems on purpose. Look at these cuts in the power cables. And someone loosened all the connection bolts. The council made sure I could never escape," Kira-9 explained. "They wanted me to die slowly." Captain Jinwoo's face grew dark. "That is evil, pure evil. But fixable," Minju said cheerfully. She was pulling components out of her toolbox. "Kira-9, remember how we fixed that plasma leak near the asteroid belt? With the coffee maker parts. You want to use coffee maker parts to fix life support?" Kira-9 asked in confusion. Minju grinned. "Not just coffee maker parts. I have got some spare wiring from our food printer, a pressure valve from the shower system, and this really nice circuit board I salvaged from a broken entertainment console." Kira-9 watched in amazement as Minju began connecting these random parts to the station's systems. Everything she knew about engineering said this should not work. Different technologies were not supposed to be mixed together. The power frequencies would not match. The computer protocols would conflict, but somehow it worked. "There," Minju said, wiping her hands on her uniform. "That should hold for a while. The air recycling is back to full power, and I boosted your heat distribution by 30%. How?" Kira-9 asked. "This violates every principle of galactic engineering standards." Captain Jinwoo laughed. "We humans have not read those standards yet. We just fix things until they work." "Speaking of fixing things," Minju said, "your communication array is a mess. The dish outside has been damaged, probably by but I can rebuild it with parts from our ship. You would give up your own equipment for me?" "We have backups," Captain Jinwoo said. "And besides, we want you to be able to call for help if you need it." "But I am not staying here," Kira-9 said in confusion. "Am I?" The two humans looked at each other. "Well," Captain Jinwoo said carefully, "that is up to you. You are welcome to come with us to human space. But we cannot force you to leave your home galaxy." "There is nothing for me here," Kira-9 said quietly. "My people think I am dead. The council has marked me as untouchable. If any ship sees me with you, they will attack." "Then they will have to deal with us," Minju said firmly. She patted a weapon on her belt. "We humans might be new to space, but we are not helpless." "Why are you doing this?" Kira-9 asked. "You barely know me. You do not owe me anything." Captain Jinwoo sat down beside her. "Dr. Kira-Beelan, can I tell you something about humans? We are stubborn. When we see someone being treated unfairly, we get angry. When we see someone in trouble, we help. It is just who we are, even if it means making enemies. Especially then," Minju added. "The way I see it, anyone who punishes people for telling the truth is not someone we want as a friend anyway." Kira-9 felt tears in her eyes again. These humans were offering her something she thought was lost forever. A chance to start over. A chance to be valued for seeking truth instead of punished for it. "I would like to come with you," she said. "Good." Captain Jinwoo smiled. "Let us pack your things and get out of this place. I have a feeling the galaxy is about to get very interesting." 3 months later, Kira-9 stood in front of the largest gathering of beings the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of screens showed her image across hundreds of worlds. Her blue skin glowed brightly again, healthy and strong. Behind her, Captain Jinwoo and the human delegation watched with quiet pride. The emergency Galactic Assembly had been called after Kira-9's evidence reached every corner of known space. The humans had helped her broadcast her research from their own communication networks. No one could silence her now. Citizens of the galaxy, Kira-9 began, her voice clear and strong. For 300 years, the Sacred Council has lied to you. They have kept fusion technology hidden. They have prevented your children from reaching the stars. They have kept you weak and dependent while they grew rich and powerful. She touched a control pad, and holographic displays showed her data. Mathematical equations floated in the air. Energy readings pulsed with light. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. On Villani Prime, crowds gathered in the streets to watch. On the mining worlds of Terrania, workers stopped their digging to listen. Across the Helix Confederation, families huddled around communication screens. Everyone could see the truth now. Elder Morvak's ancient face appeared on the main screen, his tentacles writhing with rage. "This exile speaks poison," he shouted. "She is untouchable by galactic law. Her words are the ravings of a mad truth speaker." But before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the assembly. Ambassador Hunwoo of the Human Alliance stepped forward. He was young compared to the other delegates, and his simple uniform looked plain next to their fancy robes. "Elder Morvak," he said calmly, "your laws do not apply in human space. We recognize no authority that punishes people for seeking truth." The assembly erupted in shocked whispers. A species barely 10 years in space was challenging the most powerful council in the galaxy. "You dare speak to us this way," Morvak hissed. "You are children playing with toys you do not understand." Captain Jinwoo moved to stand beside his ambassador. "Maybe we are children," he said with a slight smile, "but we know right from wrong. And keeping people in the dark is wrong." Suddenly, screens across the assembly began lighting up with new messages. On Terrania 7, the Mining Guild had declared independence from council rule. The message was simple: "We stand with the truth speaker." More messages poured in. The Outer Rim colonies announced they were cutting ties with the council. 3 major trade routes declared themselves neutral zones. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone could stop it. "You see," Kira-9 said, turning to address the assembly, "the people are ready for truth. They are tired of being kept ignorant. They want to build a better future for their children." On her home world, something amazing was happening. Villani scientists were coming out of hiding, sharing their own suppressed research. Dr. Suna had developed clean energy systems. Professor Deho had created new medicines. Engineer Jiwon had designed faster ships. All of their work had been banned by the council. But the most shocking moment came when Elder Yeren, the youngest member of the Sacred Council, stood up and removed her ceremonial robes. "I can no longer serve a system built on lies," she announced. "Dr. Kira-9 speaks the truth. I have seen the hidden files. I have watched us destroy brilliant minds to protect our power. I stand with the exile." Morvak's face turned dark with fury. "Traitor, you will be marked as untouchable." "Then I will be in good company," Elder Yeren replied. Walking over to stand beside Kira-9. The assembly dissolved into chaos. Some delegates shouted support for the council. Others demanded immediate reforms. A few simply walked out, returning to their worlds to choose sides in the coming conflict. But through it all, the humans remained calm and steady. They had done something the galaxy thought was impossible. They had taken in an exile and given her a voice that could not be silenced. "This is just the beginning," Captain Jinwoo told Kira-9 as they watched the proceedings. "Change is never easy, but it is necessary." "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we help build something better," Ambassador Hunwoo said. "A galaxy where people are free to learn and explore. Where truth is valued instead of feared." Over the following days, more worlds joined the growing alliance. They called themselves the Coalition of Free Systems, and they welcomed refugees from Council Space. Scientists, artists, philosophers, and inventors who had been silenced for generations finally had a place where their ideas could flourish. Kira-9 found herself at the center of it all. The exile who had been left to die alone was now one of the most respected voices in the galaxy. She established the Truth Speaker Institute, where researchers could work without fear of persecution. But her favorite moments were quiet ones. Working in the laboratory with her human friends, Minju would suggest impossible solutions to engineering problems. Jinwoo would ask questions that made everyone think differently. They approached science with joy and curiosity, instead of rigid rules. One evening, as Kira-9 watched the stars from the observation deck of the human space station, she thought about how much had changed. 7 months ago, she had been ready to die in silence. Now, her voice had awakened an entire galaxy. Somewhere out there, on forgotten stations and hidden colonies, other truth speakers were finding courage to speak up. They knew that someone would listen now. Someone would answer their call for help. The age of silence was ending. The age of truth had begun.